Welcome to the discussion of Chapter 4. So at the end of Chapter 3, Raskolnikov is getting up in a huff because he has just read the letter from his mother telling him that his sister, Dounia, has become engaged to a man named Pyotr Petrovich Luzhin. And he, even though despite his mother saying this is a great thing for Dounia and for the family and for you, like this is going to be so great for you in your future because he's starting a law firm, and you're going to work, you can work for him, and you can go back to university, and then someday maybe you'll be partner. And he's reading between the lines all the times when his mother's mask slips and she talks about, like, yeah, he kind of comes off as rude, but Dunya tells me it's okay. And we kind of, brought up to him that maybe he could be your assistant. And he's like, well, I'm going to have to, he doesn't really seem to go for that idea. He's like, well, I need to meet somebody first before they're going to be my assistant. And, and, she calls him her Rodya. So one of the things that I want to talk about is the names, these Russian names, and I put them in the description, the characters that are in each chapter, because these names are usually 2 or 3 names long. And so Raskolnikov's name that's actually his last name, just like Marmeladov is the last name. And Ivanovich is a last name, and usually like a middle. I mean, Ivanovich is really Katerina Ivanovich's middle name because her last name would be her husband's name, Marmeladov. So everybody's got these 3 names. And then there's also a nickname, which does not necessarily end up being a diminutive of their actual name. So it can get kind of confusing. So Dounia, his sister, that's her nickname. Her real name is Avdotya. And Raskolnikov, as we've known him for these 3 chapters, his name is Rodion, and they call him Rodya. So we're going to start to get into like the nicknames of people. And so sometimes they're going to refer to them. A lot of times they're referring to Pyotr Petrovich as Peter Petrovich. And then other times they're referring to him as Luzhin, which is his actual last name. So the middle name usually indicates that they are the son or daughter of. So if you say Ivanovich, that is, the daughter or son of Ivan. And so it's almost kind of like a maiden name or something like that. And then the last name is the last name. And sometimes they're referring to you with your last name. And sometimes they know you well enough, there's a nickname. So it can get very confusing, which is why in every chapter I'm putting the character list down there. And I will also put the nicknames. So from whenever his mother is talking about him, he's no longer Raskolnikov because that's her last name as well as Dunia's last name. So of course she wouldn't call him Raskolnikov. She calls him Rodya, which is his nickname off of his first name, which is Rodion. And Avdotya is the more like if she was being addressed by somebody in a more formal way. And then the nicknames that they call her is Dounia. So she's writing to her Raja about Dounia and saying, this is such a great opportunity for you, Raskolnikov, Raja. And he is annoyed by this. He feels like clearly there are red flags. And as a mother, why is she not stepping in? As a mother, why is she not saying, Dounia, this isn't a great idea? I mean, it sounds like she does kind of say, like, oh, gee, it sounds like it's kind of rude. It's kind of weird that, one of your greatest qualities is that you're poor because he wants you to be indebted to him. And Dounia, oh, mother, it's going to be fine. But he's upset that she accepts this kind of explanation from Dounia. Like he thinks she should know better. She should take a firmer hand and say, no, Dounia, as your mother, I'm telling you, it's not fine. Like there's red flags here. I don't think this is a good move. But the reason why she's not doing it, he presumes, is because she wants it to be good for her Rodya, and that she is sacrificing her daughter for the sake of her son. And he does not like that. Because, of course, he loves his sister. And he's also a little annoyed that he's questioning, like, did they collude? Like, did his mom and sister, like, was this an open discussion between them? Like, yes, I'm going to make this sacrifice for Raja. This is what we're going to do. Or is it just they both know that this is what is happening, and they're just both kind of complicit in it without actually saying the words out loud? That's another thing that he questions. He's upset with Dounia, and he um, likens what she's doing to what Sonia Marmeladov did, where Sonia prostituted herself to get money. But he says it's almost even worse the way that Dounia is going about it, because in Sonia's case, she was doing it because out of real necessity, or else the children would have starved. She's doing it because they can't survive without it. Whereas Dounia is doing it so that she can have an easier life, or so that Rodya can have an easier life. And he just says, no, not as long as I'm alive. This is not going to happen. He's also really miffed about how they're like, oh, he's such a great businessman. And then he says, yeah, he's acting like the businessman, even in this situation where he says, oh, I'm going to pay for part of your trip. I'll pay for the bags to be shipped. Where he's like, the bags will probably go for free. And then he's letting his mother-in-law, his future mother-in-law, pay out of her pension. She doesn't have the money. It going, really far, and in like third class in this, cart to get to the train, and then to go third class. And he's like, who does that? Like, he doesn't understand why they are not offended by this, by like by how she's being treated. And he's saying, in the beginning of a relationship, men and women are putting their best forward. They're going to be the best version of themselves that they will ever be. It's going to wear off, and they're going to become, less attentive, less over the top as the marriage continues. And he's like, if this is the best this guy's giving you, where he is making you pay your way, he's like, yeah, I want to get married right away. I don't have time to talk to your brother about it. And you've got to come to me. You figure out how to make the way. And, I'll just see you at the station. He's like, if this is how it is when he's courting you, when he's trying to get you to marry him, what is it going to be like after you're married? And he thinks that Dounia just has a completely unrealistic view of like that after they're married, he thinks that she's going to have such a effect on him that he's going to want to pay for Raja's schooling, and make him a partner. Raskolnikov knows that this is not realistic. They're not being realistic, and that this guy just wants to have his sister is very beautiful, and she's young, and this guy, Pyotr Petrovich, just wants this beautiful young girl to look up to him and be like, oh, you saved me from the depths of my poverty. And so that he can always have the upper hand, so that he can always be like, yeah, don't forget what I did for you. And Raskolnikov's like, yeah, that's not happening. And while he's out, he stumbles upon this girl walking in the street, and he's like, that's odd. She's so young, and she's walking very, like, stumbling all over. And he gets up to her. He realizes she's drunk. She looks like she's been um, attacked. Her clothes are ripped. They've been put on for her. He's like, this isn't a woman who dressed herself. This looks like some man dressed her and didn't know what he was doing. And then he notices that the street is deserted, but yet on the other side of the street, there's this kind of like fat dandy that he describes him, has also noticed that this young girl is not in full with her faculties. And he's thinking, yeah, this guy's after her. This guy's waiting for me to move on so that he can grab this girl and continue to abuse her while she's in this inebriated state. And so he gets really frustrated and he goes at him and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing? Leave, kind of get out of here." And a policeman steps in and he's like, "What's going on?" And Raskolnikov's like, "Oh, just the one I wanted, just the person we need. Look at this girl. Look at how she looks like she's been taken advantage of. She's been plied with alcohol. It looks like her clothes are ripped, like they've been, you know, messily put back on." And the police officer is like, "Yeah, I understand what's going on." And he's like, "And then look at this guy across the street. He's just waiting for us to move on so that he can continue to take advantage of this girl." And he's like, "All right, I gotcha. I understand." He's trying to wake the girl up and like, "Hey, where's your address? Where do you need to go?" And Raskolnikov reaches in his pocket and he's like, here's some money so you can get her a cab. And the officer kind of looks at him like, I'm sure the officer could commandeer a cab and be like, "Hey, you're going to take me where I want to go because I'm a police officer," and or has some sort of, police station vehicle that he could take this girl. And so he thinks it's very odd that Raskolnikov is like dressed in absolute rags. He doesn't look like he should have a penny to his name, but that he's giving the police officer money to pay for this girl. And it's kind of once again where we see him, and his first instinct is to help. His first instinct is like to protect this girl, to get her home. And the policeman's like, "Okay, I got it, buddy." And so he starts to, walk with this girl, and then Raskolnikov, it's kind of almost like when he gave the money to the Marmeladovs, where he left the money. And then when he gets on the stairs, he kind of thinks twice about it. Like, I need that money. Like, why did I do that? He kind of has that moment again where he's like, what am I doing? Like, why am I even interfering in this? So there's like his first instinct. And then there's the second where he's like rationalizing it, and he runs after the cop and he's like, "Just leave him alone. Just let him have his way. Like, what do we care?" And he's very jaded. He's thinking about how people at that time talk about like, "Oh yeah, well there's a percentage of the girls that are going to go wayward and that's just the way that it is." And he's like, this girl's just one of this percentage, and he's disgusted with it, and he's thinking about, well, what if Dounia were one of that percentage, then what? And he's like, he's just having this moment where he's just kind of like disgusted with the reality of the way that things are. And then he's like, why was I out here again? Like, he couldn't remember. Like, he's like, I read the letter. He's like kind of trying to go over his steps. Like, why am I in the street? What was I about to do? He's like, I read the letter. And then my next thought was, oh yeah, my next thought was to go see Razumihin. And Razumihin is a fellow classmate of his from university who is also not taking classes right now because he couldn't afford it. And he is the exact opposite. He is like the yin and yang to Raskolnikov. So he is, even though they're both in the exact same circumstances, they're the same age, they could not be more different. So as Raskolnikov is very prickly, very antisocial, doesn't want to talk to anybody, these circumstances that he's in where he cannot afford to go to university and he had to drop out because he couldn't afford to keep up with his classes, he's just sitting in his room for a month, depressed and not eating, and stopped doing tutoring and is just, despondent. Whereas Razumihin he's Mr. Like, everybody's his friend. He knows everybody. He's always like, hey, he's out there. He also cannot afford classes, but he's like doing everything he can. It's like anything he can do to make money, anything he can do to save money. He's doing it. He's saving things up so that he can go back and take classes. And, he's man on a mission and nothing's going to get him down. He's going to make this happen no matter what. So they could not be more different. And it's interesting that even though they're not great friends, it says that that Raskolnikov really didn't have any friends because he was so prickly and standoffish that people, although they respected him and they understood he was very smart, they were just like, yeah, that's, he doesn't want anything to do with us. So they stopped making the effort. But that because of the way that Razumihin is, he always made the effort. He never let that be a barrier. He never lets Raskolnikov's prickly exterior be a barrier to being a friend to him. And that seems to have made a mark on Raskolnikov, because he's like, the first thing that he wants to do after he reads this letter is go see Razumihin. He doesn't even know why. Even he's questioning, like, why would that be the first thing that I'd want to do? Like, why would that be like what do I think is going to happen from that? And he doesn't know. He's just like, that's odd, like that I would want to do that. But he decides that that's what he's going to continue to do. He's like, I'm in the street. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go there. And so that is where we leave him, where he is about to go and see Razumihin, which he hasn't seen him for 4 months. He's been avoiding everybody because he's just, despondent and like not really wanting to see anybody. And he'd even seen him in the street a couple months ago, the book says, but that he pretended like he didn't see him and he walked the other way. And that Razumihin did see Raskolnikov, but understood that Raskolnikov was trying to avoid him and so just let him go. But we're going to meet Razumihin. It's so hard with the two R words. I keep saying the wrong word. So if I've already said Razumihin many times before this, when we've never even met him, please understand. It's like so hard. These two R names, I keep getting them intertwined. But he's just such a fun character. So it's like with all of this heavy, subject matter that we deal with in this book, he's just this light that brings humor and happiness and just a completely different point of view to everything. And even it's like he's always the sunshine to Raskolnikov's cloudy, rainy exterior. And so it's just and Raskolnikov doesn't want anything to do with it. He does not, he's not, it doesn't permeate his worldview or his mood. He just kind of puts up with it. And it's almost like Razumihin doesn't even notice that it doesn't help. That's just who he is. And he continues to be that way. He is unaffected as well by Raskolnikov, just as Raskolnikov isn't necessarily affected by Razumihin, but it's just so fun to see them exist in the same space and how they handle things differently. And so we're going to have great fun reading about Razumihin in the future. And we will get to see him in full in the next chapter. So meet me in chapter 5.